Empress of Austria and Queen of Hungary, found her story described as one of the saddest in the history of royalty, despite being one of the most beautiful and accomplished women of her time. Malik, how does Karl Kuchler, as translated by George P. Upton, introduce us to this profoundly melancholic figure?
Kuchler, through Upton's translation, immediately sets a somber tone, drawing a parallel between Elizabeth's life and that of Marie Antoinette. Both, he notes, experienced lives filled with sorrow and met tragic ends. Elizabeth by an assassin's dagger, Marie Antoinette by the guillotine. The preface emphasizes that Elizabeth will not be remembered as a sovereign, precisely because court life was so distasteful to her. Instead, she's framed as the beautiful, sorrowful daughter of the Wittelspocks.
It's quite a strong opening, juxtaposing her royal status with such deep personal unhappiness. The text mentions her as an accomplished scholar, linguist, musician, and well-versed in history, science, and art. These are not typical attributes we associate with someone so resistant to public life. Was her intellect part of her undoing, perhaps making her too aware of the superficiality around her?
It certainly played a role. Her childhood, spent largely at Possenhofen, fostered a deep love for nature and freedom, which stood in stark contrast to the rigid Habsburg court. She wasn't groomed for royal duties in the traditional sense. Her mother, Duchess Ludovica, focused more on Elizabeth's older sister, Helene, leaving Elizabeth, or Sisi as she was called, to develop her own interests. This upbringing meant she inherited her family's pride, independence, honesty, and courage, but also made it incredibly difficult for her to adapt to the constraints of court etiquette. The text also notes she was a passionate lover of the woods and mountains, happiest when walking or riding among them, or associating with the Hungarian peoples. Her betrothal to Franz Joseph seems almost accidental, chosen over her seemingly more suitable sister. The text describes Franz Joseph seeing her playing with goats, then bursting into a room with wild roses. It sounds romantic, but it clearly set the stage for conflict, given her nature. That's exactly it. The story suggests Franz Joseph was instantly smitten by Elizabeth's youthful beauty and charm. Helene, while intelligent and distinguished, simply didn't capture his heart the way Elizabeth did. The decision to marry Elizabeth, a 16-year-old child in the eyes of the court, was his personal choice, overriding his mother, Archduchess Sophie's carefully laid plans. This almost guaranteed Elizabeth would face an uphill battle from day one. And that battle started almost immediately. Her early married life was marked by opposition and intrigue, particularly from her mother-in-law, Archduchess Sophie. The narrative describes Elizabeth as a, quote, poor bird that had left the home nest before it had learned to fly. This seems to imply she was simply unprepared, rather than actively rebellious. Initially, she was unprepared, yes. She expected her marriage to be a long holiday, and instead found herself in a hostile environment where her every attempt to assert herself, or even just be herself, was thwarted. She rebelled not out of malice, but from a profound aversion to the restraint and monotony of court life. The text recounts incidents like her refusal of a state breakfast in favor of bread, sausage, and Munich beer, or taking off her gloves at a ceremonial event, openly defying established custom. She was simply unable to conform.
Her inability to conform, however, seems to have been perceived as heartlessness and indifference by the Viennese court, further isolating her. Yet her travels and her deep connection to Hungary tell a different story. Was her love for Hungary a genuine political interest, or more a refuge from her personal unhappiness in Vienna?
It was likely a combination of both. Her initial curiosity about Hungary was sparked by the court's intense prejudice against the Magyars. Her independent spirit compelled her to investigate for herself, and she found their open-hearted, chivalrous nature resonated with her own. She immersed herself in their language and culture with remarkable zeal. Her emotional attachment was so strong that she once told Count Julius Andrassy, quote, "It distresses me to have things go wrong in Italy, but if anything were to happen to Hungary, it would kill me," end quote. This connection earned her immense popularity there, culminating in her being crowned Queen of Hungary alongside Franz Joseph in 1867, a unique event in their history.
Her early experiences with motherhood were also quite tragic, particularly with the court taking her first two daughters away and then the death of her 2-year-old daughter Sophie. This must have compounded her feelings of isolation and powerlessness.
Absolutely. The Archduchess Sophie saw to it that her daughters, Sophie and Gisela, were removed from her care almost immediately. This was a profound personal affront to Elisabeth. When her son, Crown Prince Rudolf, was born, she famously declared, quote, "I will not permit my boy to be taken away and given to the care of strangers. He will need me and we will be happy in each other," end quote. But again, Sophie intervened, arguing it was not suitable for the heir to a great empire to be brought up by a young mother who as yet did not even know how to conduct herself.
So she was constantly fighting for control over her own life and children. Her love for horses seems to have been another avenue of escape, offering her a sense of freedom that court life denied.
Indeed, riding was her greatest delight. She had an almost hypnotic power over horses, even the most vicious ones, as the text describes. She spent hours in the saddle, often alone, dashing through forests or across the Hungarian plains. This passion also served a deeper purpose. It was a way to banish the terrible fits of depression that plagued her, which the text links to the Wittelsbach family's hereditary tendency towards mental disorders, or what we now understand as neurasthenia.
That's a fascinating link. Her life seems to have been a constant quest for escape and solitude, evidenced by her frequent travels and her passion for literature, particularly Heinrich Heine. The story of Bismarck intervening to prevent her from honoring Heine due to his insults against the Hohenzollerns is quite telling of the political sensitivity she often ran up against.
She had immense reverence for Heine, whose poems resonated with her own sorrows and disillusionment. When her public efforts to erect a monument to him were thwarted by Bismarck, she circumvented it by commissioning a statue for her private villa, Achilleon, in Corfu. This highlights her defiance and her unwavering commitment to her personal tastes, even when they clashed with political realities.
And her physical regimen, her constant weighing, living on milk and oranges, her aversion to food and alcohol, all seem to point to a profound internal struggle, possibly exacerbated by this hereditary condition.
Yes, her strict habits reflect a deep-seated anxiety, particularly a morbid horror of getting stout. This desire to control her body, even at the expense of her health, shows how intensely she felt the pressures of her public image and her personal demons. It paints a picture of a woman constantly battling herself and her environment.
Greatest tragedy of her life, Crown Prince Rudolph's death at Mayerling, seems to have been the breaking point. The text describes her as never the same afterward. What was the impact of this event on her already fragile state?
Rudolph's death, shrouded in secrecy and suicide, shattered her. She stated, quote, "In every human life, there is a moment when one dies inwardly, and that need not necessarily be the time when death actually takes place." For her, that moment was when she received the news of Rudolph's death. She displayed immense strength in breaking the news to Franz Joseph, but the aftermath was profound despair. Her craving for solitude intensified, and she retreated almost entirely from public life, wounded by her granddaughter's resemblance to the mother she blamed for Rudolph's changes.
Her final years were marked by increased travel and a persistent desire for anonymity, leading to her tragic assassination. The detail of the raven, a Habsburg omen of misfortune, appearing just before her journey to Geneva, feels almost poetic.
It adds a chilling layer to the narrative. Her assassination by anarchist Luigi Lucchini, though unexpected in its method, aligned with her own presentiments of an unnatural death. She famously told her companion, "We must all meet our fates sooner or later, and whatever is destined to happen will happen. Nothing we can do will alter it. You know I am a fatalist." She died, as the author notes, quote, "swiftly and painlessly and under the open sky, almost as she had wished."
Ultimately, her desire for peace and solitude, so elusive in life, was sought even in death. Her will, which requested burial at Achilleon, was overridden by Franz Joseph, who insisted she be interred in the Capuchin vaults with other Habsburgs. It's a final poignant irony, isn't it, that her enduring wish for individual peace was again denied.
It is. The author vividly contrasts the gloomy burial chamber of the Capuchins with the sunny shores of her Greek island, highlighting the deep contradiction between her true nature and the role fate imposed upon her. She remains, as Kuchler concludes, the beautiful and unfortunate daughter of the Wittelsbachs, following her solitary way through life, her lonely spirit ever seeking rest in peace and vain.
If you found this exploration of Empress Elisabeth's complex life compelling, share this episode with someone who appreciates nuanced historical figures.